but these programs actually pay people to, adopt a more active commute or just a more car-free, car-light kind of option. So the one I really want to highlight is here on the left. It's called Incentrip, and that's an app that you can download on your phone for Android or iOS. And what it does is it'll help you plan your trip, and it will show you the different options. So you can drive alone. That's totally fine. There may be a transit option. There may be a biking option, and the app assigns points to these different choices. So you still will get a couple of points for driving, but you'll get a whole lot more points if you can take transit or ride a bike. And those points accrue, and over time you can redeem them for cash rewards, and they're adding a lot more, a bigger reward bank, including some gift cards, and eventually we're hoping to see maybe like smart trip card credits and things like that. So download it, give it a try. And some of the other programs here on the right are, they're sort of like active commute leaning, but if you're, for people who can maybe get into a shared ride situation, there are financial incentives for that too. So $130 per month for new carpools, $200 a month for new van pools, and even on demand carpooling will earn drivers $10 per trip that for matching through an app called Carpool Now. So a couple things, not as super relevant to our discussion, but I want to throw them out there anyway. And let's see. And I did want to just take a quick sort of commercial break and just recognize that we are promoting commuting options that maybe involve sharing airspace with people, and not everybody is very comfortable with that right now. And so I want to say two things about that, which one is that we completely understand, and just want everybody to know who might be listening to this that these kinds of things might not be options for you right now, but maybe at some point they will, and we're always here to help with that. But also, if you are thinking about, getting onto transit again, or getting back or getting on a transit commute, there are some different programs out there that might be able to help sort of ease any concerns or help get there. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about what we do for employers. So what I just talked about is very sort of individual commuter facing, but we actually work very hard to support employers and encourage them to build a commuter benefits program that involves, that encourages active commuting. So one of the ways that we do that is we try to encourage employers to adopt some kind of a transit benefit. So either, even at a minimum, get a pre-tax benefit. We'd love to see subsidization, but we can help employers get that going and set up those programs. Also, Capital Bike Share offers a corporate program that allows employers to give their employees a discounted membership of $25 or $50. We also like to continue to promote Capital Bike Share for All, because we think even within employers, there will likely be people who meet the income eligibility requirements that can take advantage of that. So we try to encourage adopting that program, or at least promoting it. There's also incentives available for employers. There's this really great one called the Maryland Commuter Tax Credit, which right now it covers transit and van pool and guaranteed ride home. If an employer is providing some kind of a subsidy for these types of programs, they get 50% of that cost back per employee per month. So there can be some pretty big cost savings in addition to the tax savings that are realized by providing these kinds of benefits. And then lastly, there are a ton of resources out there. So we work with employers to kind of help them build their program and show that doesn't have to be a whole lot of like reinventing the wheel here. So now I want to talk about really what from an employer, but also a community standpoint, what we can do through the RideSmart program. So at a very basic level, we can review content, and we can provide content that really promotes these different options. And we can do that in a digital format or a printed format. We can do, customizable things. just different ways to promote things like free programs like Guaranteed Ride Home that would support a more active commute. We can also facilitate training and consultation and participate in events. So that can look anything like, helping an employer to establish a commuter benefits program, or getting their employees into a transit program, getting people familiar with Capital Bike Share, even getting people familiar with, just bike commuting in general. And we have a great system here with WABA in the area. I'm actually a league cycling instructor myself through the League of American Bicyclists, and when I worked up in Boston, we facilitated or led a lot of these kinds of, just like workplace bike commuting sessions and things like that. So there's a lot of great tie-ins with sustainability and wellness events and things like that. So there's no real limit. There's no limit to really how active commuting can overlap with people's people's worlds. And one of the other things that we do is we help measure, we help take these measurements. We help do baseline surveys. We can help do zip code analysis to figure out what kind of a program we can help build that that encourages more active commuting. And once we get some things in place, we're gonna put y'all up for a bunch of awards and make you shine in the county, because we need to see that really great leadership. So so these are just some of the things that, some of the ways that we can support communities and employers throughout the county. And just another little thing, sort of why we do what we do is a lot of this does tie back into air quality, and also looking at the trends, especially related to COVID. We are seeing that we are not seeing the same number of people returning to work yet, but we are seeing the pre-pandemic levels of traffic congestion. So these kinds of things really influence the work that we're doing as well. And we're hoping to see some of these trends swing back in a different direction, in the near future. So just some things to leave you with, just again, kind of recapping, how we can help different audiences, different buckets of people who might be commuting. So, actually people who are commuting to work, please sign up for these free programs, check them out. If you have ideas, if you need something happening at your office and it's not happening, let's connect, and we'll figure out how to get something going. If you are an employer, anyone in the audience, you have a business in Prince George's County, it doesn't matter the size. We help all businesses get things like this going. And just in your community, invite us to your events. We love partnering with MNC PPC because they're already doing great events. So we just did the Bike and Lights Festival 2 weeks ago, and from that I met a park ranger who's running a similar program this coming Saturday in Bladensburg. So we're going to bring out lots of bike lights and reflective stuff. So, and tire patch kits and all that kind of stuff. So, we love to be in your community and, talking about these active modes of transportation, in conjunction with our Vision Zero strategy and our bicycle and pedestrian program. It all overlaps, and we would love to help you out and be a part of your programs. So that's really it for me. These are some of the links to some of the different programs that I mentioned, and I'm happy to stick around for a couple minutes and take questions, or I can just sign off and we can talk later.
Stacy, thank you so much. That was a fantastic presentation, and thank you for. I hope your stepfather will understand that you took a little bit of business into his time. Are there any questions of Stephanie?
I have a hand up. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I actually have 3 questions.
Okay.
It's a very interesting initiatives, but I feel like they're focusing more on encouraging demand rather than necessarily unlocking it. And by that, I mean there's more. There's a sense that it's like people who commute already know that they have alternative ways to commute, while in my case, I just can't bike to work on Central Avenue if I don't want to get killed. Was e-bike or without electric bike, right? the other aspect of it is the sort of the pandemic effect. And I just earlier today actually emailed my employer and asked if we're going to have free parking after January 1st, because the blue line corridors that I live along, within the walking distance, according to our PG Atlas, is 55% at least one jab. That's incredibly low. With all due respect, I don't want to be with my neighbors on a metro train, because I've had my 2 shots scheduled to get a booster, and I do weekly COVID tests to be able to come to the office. That's my livelihood, to not get COVID. So I think we need to think about that. So that's a little bit of reflection. And now actually 2 quick questions. One is, what is the cost of developing this app? Because I just looked it up on Google Play Store, and it has between 1 and 500 total downloads, which is, I don't think I've ever seen an app that has less than 1,000 downloads. And it's been on an app store for, I think, 3 years, according to the data. And sort of, is that kind of a good value for money of public resources to develop these tools? And tangentially, it said Google Maps is king. That's where you get all your data, traffic, biking routes and stuff. But some of the Google Maps data is not actually accurate, doesn't reflect the reality. In fact, we have a little shortcut here. That's a paper road, and there's kind of a little dirt path kind of thing, about 20 feet in total. That would completely change the walking dimensions of this neighborhood I live in. Google Maps will not work with me as an individual to recognize that as an official shortcut, which would completely change some of the routing for bicycles and pedestrians. So do you guys work as a county to work with these big tech giants to update their mapping opportunities that they flag to people as a sort of routes for bicycles and other things? So those are 2 questions: value for money on app development, and do you work with Google Maps?
That's okay. Thank you so much. I am just wondering if one of my colleagues is on the line. I was going to see if Nima, I don't see her on the line. What I would love to have you do, I would love to follow up with you about the, I don't work as closely in mapping. I mean, we have a huge GIS program, but I can't say for sure to what extent we're working to get those kinds of things that you're finding into the bigger system. But I'm sure we can get an answer for you. So I will definitely follow up. I'll drop my email in the chat, and if you can send that to me, I'd love to, figure out, what we can do there. And in terms of, which app are you talking about, the incent? Because I mentioned a couple.
TPG Trip.
PGC Trip. Okay. Also a great question. I can't tell you what the funding source of that is. A lot of the work the work that I do is entirely grant funded. So I didn't develop the PGC Trip app. I just want to give it a little bit more coverage. So I can find that out for you too. Definitely appreciate that. And I also very much appreciate what you said at the beginning, because, that's kind of, I think every time we get to give a presentation like this, quite frankly, we've hit like another blip in the COVID. Like it has almost just fallen like directly in line with something, and it's just just can't really like win for losing. And so that's the whole thing. We're not. We really do just want to let people know that these programs do exist, because they're not going away. So if the opportunity to start using transit comes back up for folks, then these like these supportive programs are going to be there too. So we're also, there's some things that COG has done, like through the ride matching platform to, because of COVID, like they've made it easier for people to search just within their workplace for ride matches. Really narrows the field. It's sort of a double-edged sword, because it really narrows the number of people you might find, but it might instill a little bit more confidence in who you're riding with. And there's certainly been a lot of talk. I mean, I have counterparts in every jurisdiction that we're all running these same kinds of programs, and there's been a lot of talk. There's been a lot of discussion about how to make a van pool safe, or how to make transit safe, and these things. And it's unfortunately it's going to be a challenge for a long time. But we're hoping that's promoting promoting the things that are there, and just letting people know that we can give that support. And we're been working with a couple of employers and hoping to kind of bring up some things that have been kind of on the back burner, so that once it's ready to go, we can just like flip a switch and be ready to really launch a good program for them. So right now, I will say now is kind of a good planning time. It's kind of nice to like dream about what things could be like and start to plan in that way. So there can be some good in it, but yeah, I will say it is. I just started with the county last year, and it's been very challenging to connect with employers because, rightly so, they're really just concerned about their employees' safety, and the commute is now even a more far-flung thought of the day, because people just want, everybody just really wants their people to be safe. And so, yeah, but we're here. We're here when the time is right.
Stacy, your colleague Andrea has her hand up. Andrea Lasker, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Stacy, I was just going to say, I guess it was way back earlier in this discussion. We can work with our GIS people some more on that concern. And I know we've been working with Esri a lot. So we do have strong, as you'd mentioned, strong relationships with the mapping folks. Michael Jackson, I don't know if NEMA is scheduled to be on the agenda in the coming months to go over the bike and pedestrian network plan. But that's another tool, where people can add what paths and other things that they're actually using right now. And that's something that we would like to take into consideration.
Andrea, we'll be happy to have NEMA to give an update.
Okay, great. And then I think you have it on the agenda later about what's happening on the state level with the pedestrian and biking, that they're going to be holding a public meeting on December 16. Is that right? That it's on today's agenda? If not,
No,
I'll send you the, okay.
not.
So the state is also working on some pedestrian and biking planning, and they're going to be holding a public meeting on the 16th of December. So I'll put the flyer in the chat for everyone to have as a reference point. So
Andrea,
anyway.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks so much. Bye-bye.
I had one quick question for you, Stacy. What type of assistance or advice do you offer to employers about long-term bicycle parking for commuters?
Well, we can help look at their location and try to give some recommendations. It can really vary if it's installing bike parking versus maybe just changing or loosening a policy about whether or not you can bring your bike inside. I mean, it's that's kind of been my experience, is that sometimes that's the fix. If you can't really put bike parking outside, then figuring out how to bring them in can be another thing. So that's just kind of we just look at things case by case and try to make some recommendations. I have some ideas about what I would how I would love to support that kind of initiative. I don't have that program over the line yet, so I can't talk about it, but I would love to talk to you offline about it.
Okay, yeah, I'll look into that, Stacy.
But yeah, there's a lot that I would love to do. I did this kind of work in Boston, and there's a lot that I would love to take from that experience and bring here, and yeah, kind of help push some of that stuff forward.
Okay, were there any other questions of Stacy?
I just want to flag there's a good one in the chat. Melissa asked whether we can find a county-wide bike map. That's a recent addition, sort of like DC bike map, would really help active commuting. I just read her question.
Thank you, Yuri. County-wide bike map, and whose question was that?
This says Melissa. I can't pronounce the last name. I won't even try.
Okay, well, we'll get back with a response for that. That's a good comment.
Yeah, no, we're working on it.
Okay, well, thank you, Stacy.
And oh, what is a walk audit? Sorry, I see that now. So I don't know if Andrew would like to talk a little bit more about that, but you know, a walk audit really does fall a little bit more under our Vision Zero strategy. But basically, a walk audit is you know, working with a community or working with a group to survey an area and identify opportunities to improve the walkability, improve the safety, improve the access, to make it a place that is more usable for pedestrian access. And I know we've done a few around the county, and maybe Andrew will talk a little bit more about that.
Hi, sure. So we should have a reference guide up on our website in the coming weeks that can provide some resources for walk audits and give a kind of a checklist. So it's just asking people to walk around their familiar neighborhood and make notes of like tripping hazards and gaps in sidewalks, and obviously kind of bigger issues around where they would like to have sidewalks, where there might not be connectivity. And then we can also look at things like where bus stops are placed and whether there are crosswalks and other safe ways to kind of navigate. But as I said, we'll have a checklist up in the coming weeks, and we're revamping our Vision Zero website. So hopefully it'll be easier to find materials like that. And then as Stacy referenced, we've had some grant funding to do road safety audits, which are kind of the basis is the walk audit, but it's also looking a little bit more broadly at how transportation services interact with how people are biking and walking in that particular area. But we work very closely with MNCPPC on those kinds of initiatives, and they often are ways to connect to trails. So I don't know, Bob, if you wanted to add anything, or anyone else.
Well, thank you very much. Yuri, is your hand up?
Yeah, I just raised it briefly. I want to suggest that you guys work closely with 311 to collect data that would support your walk audit. Because when I initially moved to the county, I filed a number of tickets in my neighborhood where it was difficult to walk, either because the traffic signal wasn't working, construction was infringing on the sidewalk, and things like so, or trees fell across the trail, or pedestrian kind of things. And or there were branches. There was a street that literally, oh my gosh, I had to get into, like, you could literally see grass was worn out because people had to walk into the roadway to walk around these branches that were overhanging. It took 2 years for Department of Public Works to cut down that branch after about 5 tickets I filed. But if you could guys work closely with 311 to weed out with them tickets that are relating to walking, you could really significantly improve your audit.
Thank you, Yuri. You're our technology guy. With that, we should probably, looking at the time, we should probably move on to our next agenda item, unless there's something burning that we've missed. Want to say thank you so much, Stacy, for your insightful presentation.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Enjoy the party tonight. Our next update is the 2035 Master Plan of Transportation. Once again, I know Jim Sebastian is here on that. Crystal, are you here as well?
Good evening, Michael. Yes, I am here, but I will yield my time to Mr. Jim Sebastian, who'll go ahead and take the lead and talk a little bit about some of the ideas we're thinking and soliciting input on regarding the Master Plan of Transportation. So please take it away, Jim.
Thank you, Crystal and Michael. Great. Yeah. Okay. I was going to take some on the screen too, so we'll see. We'll back up. Yeah. Thank you both for including me tonight. I know this was on your agenda last time as kind of a just a preview. I'd like to get a little bit more into the meat if we can in our short time we have together. I just also want to say I'm very excited to work on this project. I worked in DC for many years, and I live in Tacoma Park, and I went to University of Maryland, so I know a little bit about Prince George's County, and I'm psyched to dive more deeply into it from a trails and active transportation standpoint. I'm just going to share my screen here to show you some of the questions I have tonight. I don't know if we'll be able to get into all of them in detail, but I'm going to take notes as we go here. And one of the things I think is great about Prince George's County and this project is that we already have a lot of good work going on. I just wanted to show everyone, I'm kind of a visual person, so I quickly put together just kind of the top 3 things that I think are kind of the background planning efforts for this. And one, of course, is the last time the county updated the master plan of transportation, which was in 2009. And there's a very thorough bicycle, pedestrian, and trail chapter on that in that plan. There's also a more recent trails, what they call what you call strategic plan that was worked on, I think, by Bob Patton in a couple different capacities, and some number of my colleagues at Tool Design. I don't know if we mentioned that's where I'm from. I'm part of the consultant team, and I work at Tool Design. And then, of course, there's the most recent effort I saw, or I've heard talked about tonight, and starting to dive into as well, which is the pedestrian and bicycle network plan, which is still ongoing. So I think most of you know about those. If you didn't, now you do, and there's more information you can find in those. But that's kind of the background. And with that, we'll get into the questions, and as we get into it, if there's more efforts, ongoing efforts that we need to know about, you can chime in on those. But we got about 4 or 5 questions here, and I try to put the most important ones on top in case we run out of time. But the first one is, and keeping in mind that we need to kind of draw on some of that work that's already been going on, and I think a lot of that will have some of these answers as well. But for tonight, for the folks that are on the call, question number 1 I have is, what are the most significant gaps in the shared use path system that you'd like to see addressed with this master plan of transportation? And I'll let Michael maybe referee the hands or the voices, or you can just shout out.
Let's see, we have 2 comments. I guess Melissa, your question was answered about the county bike map in Marion. If we don't get the link into the chat box tonight for the walk audit, we will provide that subsequent to this evening. Are there any, regarding the question number 1 about the significant gaps in the shared use path system, feel free to use the chat box to write or raise your hand, and we'll recognize you. I'm not seeing any hands raised on that. If I can start the conversation with that, personally, I would say probably a lack of east-west connections throughout the county. Oh, I'm sorry. I do see someone's hand up. If you got your hands up for this question and I haven't recognized you, go ahead and just speak up. Dan, Central Avenue Trail connection.
Yeah, and the PG connector.
Okay. Connections to DC are absent. Marion says. Coraline, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, notes that the shared use path system is not safe or unsafe in the dark, which makes it hard to use as a commuter.
This is good.
I just make comment, yeah. I think the 2 key things already were mentioned, the Central Avenue Connecting Trail, which I've been personally hoping for a while. But I've also spoke at the MTPPC budget hearing the other months and mentioned that, and I think, Jim, you've mentioned you grew up around northern part of the county or went to school there, right? And that's an example where we don't have an equitable distribution of path and shared use path resources. I think there are parts of the county that are actually very well connected to DC with bike trails and are very well endeavored around Hyattsville and northern part of the county. And then the central east-west corridors and southern part of the county are not. So I think the significant gap is the inequitable distribution of those of that mileage throughout the central and southern parts of the county.
Ken McCaughey, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Ken, notes crossing over the tracks at parallel Maryland 564, I guess in the lower up in the Bowie area, and also when is the bridge coming on the WB&A trail to go over to Anne Arundel County? Is another one. I think I have a suspicion that Bob Patton might address that question when he speaks a little later. Any other input on question number one? Jim, I'll turn it back over to you.
That's great. That's a good start. With the crowd we have here tonight, we'll get a lot more as the months go on and we develop the plan. This is a little bit more esoteric, but it might be the most important one, and that is, how can the master plan of transportation help improve bike facility development? And that really gets to the question of the MPOT provides the lines on the map. And then it's up to the county, whether it's through real estate development or the transportation department or parks department, to try to then implement those. And so does anybody have any strong opinions of, were people around for the last, the 2009 update? How do you see this plan, as opposed to some of the other efforts I mentioned earlier, helping with trail development? It might be a little too esoteric for tonight, but you folks can have a shot at it.
So I think this is Bob Patton at Park and Planning Commission. One of the biggest problems with regards to development of the trail system is that we don't have an agency that's willing to maintain trails that are not built in the park system. So if the park system is the limit of the trail system, then the trail system's really limited. And so we need to have a public agency that most likely would be DPW&T be funded sufficiently enough that they can maintain the trails that are built along roadways. The main way that trails can be built in the future is going to be along roadways. The southern part of the county, the land that the park system owns or usually gets from developers is the undevelopable land. So that means we're building trails through the wetlands and down the stream valleys and in the floodplains. And that's not going to be a very good transportation system. So we really need to have policy changes that deal with these structural developments. And just so people know, it took 30 years to build out the Anacostia River Trail system. So if we want to have something like that in the southern part of the county, as all of us know, we really don't have 30 years. We need to move a little faster, and that means we need to have a trail development administration that is a hybrid of agencies and fully staffed so we can churn out projects at a much faster rate.
All right. Does anybody else have any experience with the current master plan of transportation and have ideas how it can better serve trail development? And I should say that goes for bicycle and pedestrian development as well.
Jim, to kind of start off that, I'll see if I can prime the pump with my understanding. And so if you have a plan, and especially a plan that has been endorsed by the planning board and the county council, then hopefully that takes a lot of guesswork out when you get into specific opportunities. You kind of have a legal backing and a policy backing to say, well, in this circumstance, you should be doing this. So that's my understanding of plans in general. With that, I'll leave it open to others.
Yeah, that's a good point, Michael. I think there's a lot of activities, as we talked about, going on, analysis studies, but when it comes to requiring developers or maybe even a state highway to include facilities, bike and ped facilities in their projects, the master plan is really probably the strongest document in terms of lines on the map.
The master plan's not sufficient because the state requires a local entity to maintain the facility or they won't build it. So until we get a complete institutional process, we're going to keep being stuck with either having to twist SHA's arm with politicians on a project by project basis, or not being able to apply for special money, or not being able to get trails out of roadway redevelopment projects. So there has to be a commitment to maintain it because of the way the state policy works. You could try changing the state policy, but I doubt they'll do that just for Prince George's County.
Well, Bob, you make a good point, but I'd like to just kind of clarify one thing. It's not a policy, it's actually written into the law that SHA will not maintain sidewalks or shared use paths.
Yeah, well, whatever law, policy, it's all the same. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Michael's a lawyer, so he can make that clarification for us. Okay. That's a good point. I don't know if we'll be able to crack that nut with the MPOT, although Crystal and I can talk more about that. I should also mention, I just realized that Elsa Arias is also on the call, and from one of our other partners on the consulting team who's working on public involvement as well as the bike ped aspects of the plan. So welcome to her.
Thank you.
Yeah, feel free to chime in at any point. All right, we're doing well, I think, on time. I think we might get through 4 of the 5, or even maybe all 5. Do we want to take another look at bike facility types, which should be considered in the new master plan? Other things have come along in the last 10 years, such as cycle tracks. We need to kind of start the discussion on what types of facilities are going to be in the MPOT, what those definitions are going to be: side path, cycle track, trail, shared use paths. I know we're trying to get away from trails and use shared use paths, but does anybody else have any opinions on kind of the hierarchy of facilities for bicycles and pedestrians we want to see in the new plan?
I don't know about hierarchies. I would definitely encourage additions of any new designs that might be out there. But the other thing I was just going to say is, from the last master plan, just some consistent and clear ways of labeling things. Like, I know there are things that are labeled as bikeways and bike paths, and then you go out and there's maybe a sidewalk, or maybe a share the road sign next to a 4-lane road. So like some coherent kind of labeling would be really helpful, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very good suggestion. When I was working on the strategic trails plan for the Parks Department, the GIS that had been collected in the planning department, if there was a wider than 5-foot sidewalk, it was tagged as a trail. And so I agree with that point. There needs to be a better definition. But I would say that the protected bike lanes, the cycle tracks, road diets. Those are the things that are going to be the most opportunities in the future. And because the right of way is already there and it's repurposing the existing travel way and making it have much more protection for both bicyclists and the pedestrians. And I think that that's the future of expanding the network into the central and southern part of the county.
What about on the same lines, share, green neighborhood greenways, they're sometimes called, or shared streets in traffic calmed neighborhoods?
That's nice, but none of the neighborhoods connect because all the developments are these little pods.
Yeah. I was going to ask to that extent. There's a bicycle lane on Ardmore Road that's east of the Beltway, and I don't see it on the Capital Trails Coalition map here that Stephanie Pipierna dropped in the chat. And I'm wondering if there is actually an initiative to interconnect some of this existing, what I would call, frankly, paint work on the roadways.
Well, the Capital Trails Network has a definition that is for off-road trails. And so they're not focusing on road. They're not against it, but they're trying to answer the question previously that came up, and they're trying to really stick with a definition that says bike and pedestrian and no cars.
Thank you for clarifying.
One thing I would want to ask Ed regarding definitions of facilities. The current Master Plan of Transportation incorporates by reference the 1999 AASHTO Guide for the Development of Bicycle Facilities. We have a provision in our ordinance that kind of says, well, we look at the latest edition, and the latest edition of that is the 2012 AASHTO Guide. One thing to consider might be to add other documents by reference that could be considered, such as NACTO, that will, talk about new developments and probably a little bit more nimble. And then finally, with definitions, I rely on the Maryland Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which actually has a list of probably over 200 definitions for traffic devices, including bikeways, that have the legal standing of federal and state law. So certainly we shouldn't have any definitions that conflict with the Maryland Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices definition section.
Okay. All right. We're
Bob, do you
well.
still have a question, or can you lower your hand?
Oh, yeah, I'm done. I spoke. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm relying on anyone. I can't see the comments and raise hands. I'm relying on Mike. Let somebody do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is Johannes. I'll go. Hey, Jim.
Hey, Johannes. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. I would say, like on the previous question, there needs to be some guidelines on like when sharrows are appropriate to be used, because there's a lot of roads that are like, oh yeah, it's 45 miles an hour, you should just share the road. That's not realistic. Nobody's using that. I don't know when that standard like got adopted, but I still see like refreshes of pavement and like new projects being like, yeah, definitely share the road when cars are definitely not going to stop for you or even pay attention to you with sharrows. And I think there's been several studies that have shown that sharrows are worse than nothing. So,
right.
In those conditions.
Yeah, especially as Bob was saying, if we can't connect the traffic calmed neighborhoods, we don't want to be putting them on.
Yeah, because they're like.
I think that's like fairly easy. The guidelines said you can put them anywhere.
Cheryl, the Cheryl guidelines by State Highway Administration, and I believe DPW&T state that you should not use sharrows on roadways with speeds higher than 35 miles per hour.
Yeah, it should be 15. So whoever's suggests to update that guideline, sharrows shouldn't be used on anything higher than 15. Like
So you got to consult the MUTCD committee, and Michael can maybe get you nominated to that committee.
Yeah. Well, then make it a practice not to use it above 15, because that's just, it's silly and ridiculous.
Yeah, I think the county can make their own determination.
We only have about
well,
we only have 2 roads where 15 miles an hour is the legal speed limit. Most are 25. That's as low as it goes.
Mm-hmm.
No Sharrows then.
Yeah, and maybe that's something to look, and maybe, but that's maybe something we can look at overall in the MPOT is speed limits. You know, in addition to lines on the map, the MPOT will have, it does have, and will have an updated whole body of policies, recommendations, and policies that were already. But you know, what are the biggest impediments to building new bike facilities, and how can that be addressed in the MPOT? I think Bob has hit a lot of them. Does anybody else have any thoughts on impediments and what can be done to overcome them with either policies or lines on the map in the new MPOT?
I think, Jim, this is Crystal. Before we go on, we have a couple of hands up in the chat. One is Melissa and the other one is Marion. So Melissa, you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yes, I mean, I may actually be backtracking up to answer, I mean, to relate to another question, but I know in the past there was discussion about the county using the data from, you know, the state did a pedestrian, and I think they did a pedestrian safety mapping exercise, similar to the one that you did with tool design. And you know, people spend a lot of time commenting in these, and then also for every single sector plan, there has been a short survey where they're asking us to identify hotspots. Like I did West Hyattsville, Queens Chapel, and they ask you to identify, you know, places on the map. And so I'm wanting, I guess I just wanted kind of an update on how you're integrating those into, you know, to consider the priorities. So you're asking us about trail priorities, but there have already been a lot of public input to that end in those kind of, you know,
yeah, that was
kind
kind of my
surveys.
lead up. Yeah, that's a good point. That was kind of my lead off, is try to hit on the stuff that's already being done. And I think sector plans is a great idea. I had not thought of that, and I should have. And maybe Crystal can back me up or correct me on that. But I think it's a good place to go.
Right. So I am actually on the West Hyattsville and Queens Chapel sector plan project team. So we do, and I just joined the team. So, but I think you make a very good point in terms of not duplicating efforts, but more so making sure that I can chat with our colleagues to make sure that the results of the surveys are made available to our MPOT team. So I will go ahead and put that. Thank you very much. Because I'm starting to get more integrated into items with community planning, and they are sharing a lot of ideas with me. So thank you very much, and we will make sure that that information is connected. So thank you very, very much.
Yeah. So
and Melissa, what was the other one you had, Melissa? I wanted to make sure I got the other one. She had two ideas of other sources.
The state of Maryland, I guess it was SHA, MDOT did one. I think it was maybe it was more of a pedestrian safety plan, but they also took comments on biking. So it's a lot of road crossing kind of things. And that was done probably most recently. So it was done after the study that you did with tool design.
Okay.
And then there was also an Adelphi sector plan. I know they've done a couple of these recently, but the only one I did was West Hyattsville at Queens Chapel. And I'm referring specifically to a map where they asked us to place a pin and have comments. And I know a number of us highlighted, you know, like Ager and Hamilton and 38th, you know, where you've got city and state or county and state roads intersecting and, you know, busy intersections.
I would like to suggest that people at the planning department and potentially your consultants, if it fits in their scope of work, that the Department of Public Works and Transportation, the bike and pedestrian plan that they're pretty much done with, created an excellent online tool as a repository for all these things. And I think Andrea was alluding to it. I think that that repository should become the repository, and everything at planning, parks, and public works' work should go into that repository, so it's all kept in one place. Because I think that's a really good suggestion Melissa had.
Yeah, so it's Andrea here
Right.
with DPW&T. Yes, this is supposed to be a living document / online tool. So as Bob is saying, it's something that we want to keep updating. And we haven't released it yet because we're just working on those final stages of kind of identifying, if we imagine we have a pot of money, what would be the priorities of where we would work first. But that's something that our team can be on the agenda for next time. So thanks so much for raising that.
Hi, Andrea, you have your hand up. Would you want to go ahead?
Oh, I was just saying, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, that, as Bob is saying, that tool is something that's going to be a living document, the bike and pedestrian network plan, and we can give an update at the next meeting because it hasn't been released yet. We're still working on the last items to prioritize projects that we've identified.
Yeah. And meanwhile, I'm trying to pull all the data from those 3 plans I've mentioned, plus the sector plans now, plus some of the municipalities to inform this master plan update.
So Jim, one more. I'm sorry. Marion has
yep.
her hand up also.
Great, Marion, you're on.
Thank you. I have a comment about the Sharrows too. We need to just stop using them. It's like the old signs when right turn on red was first allowed. There were signs that said right turn on red. You know, we all know that you're not supposed to run over people on bicycles, so it's a waste of time. You know, please stop doing it. And also, you know, I live in the Port Towns area. There's not a lot of sidewalks. There's not a lot of accommodation for anything other than cars. And people just ride on the sidewalk. And I think that's gonna, you know, if we ever want to get anywhere, I mean, you mentioned that it took 30 years to get the Riverwalk Trail. You know, I've been commuting in this area on bicycle for about 50 years, and you know, we need to just recognize sidewalks as their shareways. They're, you know, if you don't put stop signs, if you don't put fire hydrants or telephone poles or, you know, bus stops in the sidewalk, then, you know, people and bikes and scooters and everything else can share them safely. It'd be nice if they're widened, but a lot of places, you know, we're going to have to do some Band-Aids, you know, just to you know, be able to provide safe paths in some of these really small, you know, older neighborhoods. But yeah, I mean, the diagrams and, you know, all the beautiful complete streets and all those are very nice, but you know, we don't have the money, we don't have the time. We need to do some more expedient measures to get people moving.
Thank you so much, Marion. Looking at the time, we've got about 17 minutes left and we still have another item to go. Jim,
That's fine, Michael. We didn't have to cover all 5 of these. I think we got a lot of good information.
And certainly, if people want to comment a little later on of the other 2 questions, please feel free to do so. We would welcome your input. I see there's still a hand up. I'll take one more quick question if that person has not been recognized.
Michael, can I just ask a quick question? This is Steph Paperno.
Hi, Stephanie. How are you?
I'm
Go
good.
ahead.
Hi, Stephanie.
Thanks so much, Jim, for the presentation. I know we don't have time to dig into this now, but maybe next time you could talk a little bit about what does implementation of this plan actually look like? I mean, you started off your presentation, I think, very helpfully stating that there are a lot of plans out there. So how does this dictate and prioritize which projects are implemented? I know Andrea mentioned the network plan is not yet public, but DPWT has gone through their own prioritization process, and where, when funding's available, they'll spend that money. So how does this master plan at the county level, influence these projects and the order in which they're happening? So maybe we could spend some time on that at the next meeting.
Yeah,
sure.
Just in short, Stephanie, they happen by opportunity. A master plan in Prince George's County doesn't have an implementation plan. It doesn't prioritize. It's all based on opportunity of what the transportation agencies or the developers or the Parks Department or whoever is doing. It just doesn't quite, it doesn't translate into this will be done. Because if it did, we'd be done by now with the 2009 plan.
Bob, thanks for that, Jim, and Crystal. Thank you so much.
I'll do my presentation, Michael. I'm gonna try to go as fast as Stacy King. She was awesome. Speed of presentation.
Okay, Bob, have at it, please.
All right. We just published a brand new Anacostia River Trail System map, showing it on my camera. And this map shows that the Little Paint Branch Trail now takes you all the way north to the Fairland Regional Park, and updates quite a bit of other things, including showing some key projects that will be completed relatively soon. So I'll share with Michael where people can order that map from our distribution house. The Patuxent River Bridge project, the week of November 15th, Anne Arundel County opened the bids. And so I'm expecting that they will be picking a contractor soon if they haven't already, and working out a contract. They expect to begin the construction in the winter of 2022. And so it'll be also weather dependent on what they need to do and what the weather's like. The Trolley Trail extension is a state highways project, and I believe they have bids on that, and we're working on the final legal agreements over with all the different parties involved in terms of maintenance, easements, land, and dealing with CSX Railroad. So that project is, I don't know how long it's going to take to build. It's incredibly tricky, but I'm imagining that it might get started in the spring of 2022. So our staff person for the Central Avenue Connector Trail moved on to a different job, and so that we're seeking a replacement for that person and trying to keep the project moving. The good news is that we have initial approval, and if it's approved by the county board and the planning board throughout this year, we'll get 2 brand new staff people working on trails in the Parks Department. So that will help us be able to move some things faster and keep track, get more involved in the marketing aspects of things, as well as trail construction and also management and maintenance. The PG Connector, we got a grant through the TLC program. RK&K is our consultant. We kicked that project off last month, and that's going to generate 30% design for a new alignment. If anybody's interested in that, I just encourage people to contact me individually, and I can talk to them about that. The alignment's one that was studied in the past, but I think is much more doable, and DPW&T is going to be a partner in that project. I'm hoping SHA will too, because we have to cross their road. We did a RAISE grant, a US DOT grant with Montgomery County and Prince George's for a bunch of trail projects. The Park Service helped us, but we did not win. There was only one project picked in every state, so about 50 projects. And a Baltimore project was picked this year, but we'll submit that grant again next time. In that grant, we had construction money for the PG connector, as well as funding to deal with the Maryland 410 and Maryland 212 intersections of the Sligo Creek Trail. That's East-West Highway at grade crossing with the blinking yellow light, and the other one at Riggs Road. A maintenance project we were able to do is we dramatically changed the underpass of CSX and Metro tracks at Lake Artemisia. And this is for the Paint Branch Trail. So if you haven't been on the Paint Branch Trail, maybe because it's far from your house in Prince George's County and you have a chance to visit it, come and visit, because I think it's indicative of how we need to really do first class trail sections with proper guidance, striping and signage, and proper roadway widths and safety issues. I'm also working with RK&K on our wayfinding sign system, and they have a draft plan for sign locations, and we'll be getting some feedback over the next couple months from stakeholders about our basic plan, what the look of the signs is going to be, and what we call the family of signs, the different types of signs that we'll use in the wayfinding system for different types of locations on the trail system. And that's been approved by our executive team at the Parks Department. And we have money set aside to implement that plan. We don't have a cost estimate yet, but we have a lot of funds set aside. So we will be taking that plan through to implementation. That's the highlights. I guess the one other thing that I thought that people on this group might be interested to know, and the thing that's really good, but it's also a challenge, but it's indicative of Prince George's County. For the 5 years I've been working here, we continually get requests from people in neighborhoods, from senior living centers, from our municipalities, for fitness loop trails, connector trails from the neighborhood to the park system, nature trails, heritage trails. There's a tremendous interest amongst the public, and we have support from elected officials, and we're really kind of overrun with more and more requests to do creative trail things close to people's home, and involving local communities. And so we don't have a really effective program at engaging the public on specific projects, but I'm hoping that we can develop that over the coming years so that we can tap that energy in the county for creating a whole variety of kinds of trail activities. So that's my report. I can take questions.
Thank you so much, Bob, for comprehensive report. You guys are doing wonderful work. Any questions or comments for Bob?
Just a quick question. That underpass under next to Lake Artemisia, I see Steve Skolnick in the chat is really impressed with it. I'm on the other hand, the glass is half empty because it literally half usable. The other half is flooded with mud. I was there just a few weeks ago. You can't ride on the half of it, so you end up coming at an oncoming traffic with other bikes in this half of the two tunnels. If you guys can figure out how to clean up the other half and maybe stop it from getting muddy and flooded, because road bikes just can't go there.
Yeah, thank you for letting me know about that. I'm working with the maintenance people, and it has been a step-by-step process. We had a grading selected to put in brand new decking in each side of the thing, and then we got hit with the supply chain problem, and the stuff that we had selected, which was really good, has not been available to us to purchase and implement to put in there. So we're going to replace the wood on one side and then add a grading on the new side. But since we haven't added the grading on the new side, we need to be more attentive to the maintenance on that side. So I'm going to talk with maintenance people. It's good for me to be able to tell them I've heard from the public who's been there and this is a problem. And so that I appreciate you letting me know. I'm sorry you have to be the guinea pig that has to experience that. But we have we have a small team of maintenance people who are now dedicated to trail maintenance and management issues, and we just started working together in the last couple of weeks, and we're going to be meeting regularly. And the group of people they're really enthusiastic about doing trails, and they ride bikes, and they have a deeper understanding than some of the people that we've had in the past. So I think we're going to start making increased progress in that area of really managing the trail system in a proper way.
Rob, no apologies needed. No apologies needed. That is a fantastic underpass. The trail network is fantastic. That was the first time I was able to get my wife on the bike because she's just terrified to ride where we are. And since we used to live in DC and moving to Prince George's County, this is the only place she would let me drive us there to go biking there. So it's no apologies needed. You guys did a stellar job in the area. We want to see more of that.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuri. Melissa, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I just have a few questions. So yeah, with Paint Branch, I mean, I have sent photos of that to you and Matt before. I mean, every time there's a rain, there's a lot of erosion. So even just fixing the decking under that second bridge, I mean, the trail was awesome one weekend, and then I came the next weekend after. And I was like, wow, it basically undid all the work. And every time it rains, there's all that erosion. And I thought, I understood that drainage might be done later, but again, just fixing that second bridge is still, that second decking is not going to address the erosion. So I'm hoping there's a plan for that. Similar to Northeast Branch and places on Northwest Branch that regularly get flooded. And it's not from rain, it's from runoff coming above, and I'm wondering how Parks is handling that kind of thing, because like Northeast Branch could be a very good commuter, errand route, but it's really not appealing to use because that first half mile has several puddles, and I think it's like regular runoff coming from above, and I don't know who's responsible. And then with the Sligo crossing, I'm interested to know what is the Parks proposed role versus SHA, and how you're also engaging SHA in traffic slowing, because you're looking at a 6-lane road or 4-lane road with, they're coming down a hill from Tacoma Park in the case of East-West Highway. When I drive on that road, I'm always scared I'm going to get rear-ended when I stop at the crosswalk. So it's great to improve the crossing, but what is SHA's commitment to actually doing some appropriate traffic slowing as well to support safety for those crossings?
So I'll try to take them in reverse order. SHA has done their current level of commitment, which wasn't much. They put in stop bars and signs that says stop for pedestrians in the crosswalk, and they put another stripe in the yellow line. And they put in new signs which say all the right thing, but the sign poles, because of the curvature of the road, the sign poles also obstruct your view of the people waiting to cross when you're driving. I drive through there almost daily, Melissa, and I just wrote a thing today to a woman who's on the school board in Prince George's County and represents that area. And she was part of some politicians who supported our efforts to get SHA to do something significant. But we did not get anywhere under COVID, which is why at parks, we're just going to ask for the money to do something specific, so they can't tell us that they don't have the money. But I wish they would do something and pay for it. But the Parks Department is not the major way to leverage SHA. The public has to utilize the state elected officials to leverage SHA. And there needs to be more lobbying with that delegation. Members of that delegation were not particularly helpful in supporting. Denny Tavares was very supportive, but so there's politics there, and frustration that SHA won't use modern technology that everybody else uses to deal with a situation like that in a much better way. We also need to continue making improvements to the trail approaches to those two intersections at Maryland 212. It's horrible. I'm sure you're familiar with that, Melissa. So let me go backwards. That was Sligo Creek. Your other comment was about the siltation that happens every time it rains at the Paint Branch underpass. Yeah, we did a study, and we have some guidance about a more permanent fix over there, and so we have a direction to go, and we'll be looking at getting an allocation of funding for that, and then going through the permitting and design process. It's going to be take a long time, because permitting with all the different federal, state, and county agencies takes forever. And so that's something that we are working on and plan to move forward. So we're not done. What we did, and what you see out there now, was what we could justify as a maintenance activity without having to do a whole bunch of permits. And so we kind of pushed the envelope there on the extent of maintenance. That's another challenge that we have. And our new director is he's willing to expand people's mind about what works as maintenance activity, as opposed to new construction. We've looked as a team, we looked at all the water pooling on the Northeast Branch, and we have to work with the Department of Public Works and Transportation that has a division that maintains the levee system, and they do a lot of the mowing down there, and they have to do things according to Army Corps of Engineers standards. So again, it's a jurisdictional nightmare, and DPW&T is really short of staff at maintaining that levee system, so they tend to not have any extra time to try to help deal with things. But we've got our maintenance team has looked at that, and we're discussing some different options. We think that there's either a place where the water table comes up like a spring. There could be a broken water pipe that creates that constant flow of water by the railroad bridge overpass. And of course, that other area where there's a lot of water buildup. The challenge is that the trail was placed inside the levee, but it wasn't engineered with sophisticated engineering as an inside the levee facility. And the stream floods regularly and it leaves silt. And so all the silt from up north comes down and ends up there. And you can see that the trail was built on the edge of the stream, and now there's a giant berm with trees growing in it on the edge of the stream, and the trail's behind that, and it holds water. So we are going to have to take more significant efforts to make sure that we have workable drainage systems over there. But it is challenging given the wetlands that are there, the water that comes down the side, and the fact that the water, no matter where we put the trail, unless it's all on top of the levee, which it can't be because the levee doesn't quite work like that, there's always going to be floods and silt buildup and the need for cleanup and changes. The floodplain inside the levee is actually constantly changing because more and more silt comes down, catches in the grass and the trees, and is deposited and builds up. So what?
Bob, I'm sorry. I've just got a notice saying that we've got.
We're at time.
And,
okay.
Marion has her hand up, and then Stephanie wants you to discuss, provide some information on the Oxen, on the timeline status of the Oxen Run Trail biking bridge by the Eastover Shopping Center.
Right. Yeah.
Marion?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Bob, I know I talked to you about this a little bit when we went to see the Henson Trail, but when a lot of the trails are built along streams, of course, the water runs downhill, that whole thing. And Prince George's County has to do, or they are doing a lot of stream restorations. They're working a lot opportunistically too. And if they were lobbied to work on a particular stream section, that would be a really good way to, combine efforts. I mean, that's what should happen. The transportation, recreation, and restoration should all be part of the same projects. I don't know what your experience with the Department of the Environment is. They have a new director over there now, but I'm really hoping to see
Marion, it would be great if you could help take that message. It really is difficult for one agency to lobby another agency. They can work together, but it takes elected officials and citizens to open the doors to meeting. Because we cooperate with them, we do things together, but we are not in a position to be, quote, telling them what to do or even pushing particularly hard. So I welcome your input on that, and that's something I can help you with the higher management at the park side to get them willing to engage with the other agencies. There has to be a high level of engagement in terms of executives and top managers engaging with their counterparts in the other agencies. But it's definitely worth going after. You have a good idea, and there's probably some potentials there.
Hey, Bob, our time is running. Can you get to Stephanie's request about the timeline status of the Oxen Run Trail Bridge?
Yeah, so that project has fell behind the schedule because of me being overwhelmed with other work. So I have not had time to really focus on getting it started. I have to, there's a fair amount of focus and work I have to do to get it launched. And but however, we had a meeting today with the National Park Service, and they are close to 100% design, and they're working on their permitting process with the Army Corps of Engineers and the Maryland Department of the Environment on the Hoxton Cove section of the trail and the rehabilitation of that. So, that project, the Park Service is moving forward. They'll probably be out in front of us, I hate to be cynical, but it will be great to have the National Park Service doing something before we do it, because that is not part of the history I'm aware of. But the current staff in the National Park Service has been tremendous at moving trail projects and supporting us at Park and Planning. And they helped us put together the RAISE grant application, and they're coordinating with us and supporting our work whenever possible. So it's really changed the relationship there. And so, we'll be chasing them a little bit on that project down there.
Wow. Well, we're a little bit over time, but I think it was hopefully well worth it. Thank you for the presenters this evening, but most of all, thanks for the participants for their insightful questions and comments. And we'll look forward to getting together on the first Monday of March of 2022. And I will be answering the questions that I was not able to put in the chat box, and getting out a meeting summary, meeting minute summary. With that, I'd like to go ahead and wish everyone a happy holiday, and look forward to seeing folks in the new year. Thank you, everybody.